All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today's deep dive is taking us way back to ancient Africa, the Kingdom of Kush. You know, that amazing YouTube video you sent over.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack that whole story. I mean, this was a kingdom that rivaled, even ruled Egypt for a while.
You think you know a little bit about ancient history, then something like this pops up.
Right. Get ready for some serious, mind-blowing stuff. Even just starting with the name Kush.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think, right? I mean, this wasn't just some name outsiders slapped on them.
That's a really good point. It likely reflects how the people actually referred to themselves. Very different from, say, Nubia.
Exactly. Which, by the way, might even be linked to the Egyptian word for gold. Did you know that?
I did.
It makes you wonder, what other assumptions do we have about Kush that we need to totally rethink?
Right.
And then there's all these other names that get thrown around. Tesseti.
What?
The Greeks called them Ethiopia.
Meaning land of the burnt-faced persons. And then you've got the Arabs later on calling it Bilad al-Sudan, land of the blacks. So many different perspectives.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, you know?
Yeah.
Piece together a picture of this kingdom, but all the pieces have different names. But one thing's for sure, Kush was a major player, not some isolated kingdom woven right into the ancient world.
No question about it. I mean, we're talking about settlements going all the way back to 8,000 BC, and that's just the start.
Wow.
To really get Kush, we got to look at this thing called the Kerma culture. This is around 2500 BC. They weren't just trading buddies with Egypt. Sometimes they were, how should I put this?
Come on, I'm intrigued.
A thorn in their side.
Oh, now we're talking. What do you mean a thorn? Actual battles and stuff?
Well, let's just say Kerma was powerful enough that the Egyptians felt the need to build forts for protection, a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
No kidding.
But they weren't all about fighting. They had a pretty sweet trade setup going on with Egypt, too. Gold, ebony, ivory, even exotic animals.
Wow, talk about a lucrative business. So I'm picturing this kingdom. They're economically smart and they can stand up to Egypt. But this is all before the official Kingdom of Kush, right? When does that actually kick off?
Things change big time around 1069 BC. The new kingdom of Egypt starts to weaken, and this opens a door for a Kushite city-state, Napata. They rise up, and bam, that's the beginning of the Kingdom of Kush as we know it.
So Napata becomes their first capital.
That's right.
But everyone seems to focus on how Kush actually conquered Egypt. From that video you know I watched. That's the part I'm waiting for.
Oh, we'll get there, don't worry.
Okay, good.
But before we dive into all that, important thing to remember, Kush wasn't out to destroy Egyptian culture. Their rulers were buried in pyramid tombs. You know, they incorporated a lot of Egyptian elements into their own traditions.
So even though they were a separate kingdom, there was still a deep respect there.
For sure.
But I gotta imagine there was some tension too, right? Competing for resources and power for centuries.
There always is, right?
Yeah.
But this is where things get interesting. King Kashta, a Kushite ruler, he's a clever guy. Egypt is divided, vulnerable, and he sees his chance. But instead of just brute force, he plays it smart, politically.
Almost thing.
He gets his daughter, Amenudas I, installed as the, wait for it, God's wife of Amun in Thebes.
God's wife of Amun. Okay, hold on, we're gonna need to unpack that one. Who's Amun and what kind of power did this God's wife actually have?
Well,
So we're in ancient Egypt, and there's this woman, the God's wife of Amun. Sounds kind of mysterious, you know?
Yeah.
Fill me in here. Who's this Amun guy, and what did this title actually mean power-wise?
well, Amun was like top tier in the Egyptian gods, king of the gods, creator of everything, that kind of thing. His cult was huge, especially in Thebes. And the god's wife of Amun was basically his female counterpart.
So not just some figurehead. She had real pull.
Oh yeah, think about it. Presided over the temple, controlled tons of land, influenced big political decisions. King Kashta, putting his daughter in that spot, pure genius.
Talk about a power move.
Right, he basically got control of Upper Egypt. And that paved the way for his successors to eventually rule all of Egypt.
Wow. So that's how you get the 25th dynasty, Kushite pharaohs running Egypt. That just flips the script on ancient history. I'm curious, though, about Amenudas Das.
Kashta's daughter.
Yeah. Did she embrace that role? I mean, talk about pressure.
Oh, absolutely. It's tough to say for sure, though. We're going off limited records here. But to pull that off, navigating both Kushite and Egyptian society, she had to be sharp. Diplomatic, for sure.
Makes you think. What was going through her head? And it wasn't just a one-time thing, right? This whole God's wife of Amun deal seems key to Kush's strategy.
Yeah, you're picking up on that. Amenardas' successors kept holding that position. All Kushite princesses, they knew the power of that office, religious and political, all rolled into one.
This is what blows my mind. We always hear about conquering, empires expanding by brute force, but Kush, they're playing this whole other game.
A much more subtle game.
And it worked. When they did become pharaohs, they didn't try to wipe out Egyptian culture.
The video you sent, it highlighted that.
Exactly. Rulers like Pi, Shobaka, they restored temples, brought back old artistic traditions. It makes me wonder, though, how the Egyptians feel about all this.
I mean, some were probably thrilled, right? Stability, prosperity, all that. But I bet there were some who weren't too happy. Longing for the old days, pure Egyptian rule. And mixing two cultures like that, even with shared history, that can't be easy.
It makes me want to know what daily life was like. Did things change much for the average Egyptian on the street?
Well, that's where archaeology comes in handy. It gives us a peek beyond the big political stories. And it seems like the Kushite pharaohs, they were pretty good at governing. They actually brought stability to Egypt when it was in a rough spot.
So not just conquerors, but decent rulers, too.
Exactly. Shows a real understanding of Egyptian culture. They weren't just saying our way or the highway. They were adapting, trying to make things work.
This is where I get confused, though. If they were doing so well in Egypt, why move the capital? From Napata to Meroë, around 590 BC. Why the switch?
Well, Napata got sacked. An Egyptian pharaoh, Psamtik II, he wanted to put Egypt back on top. So maybe moving south to Meroë was a defensive move. But it also marks a new chapter in Kush's story.
Ah, Meroë, the city of iron. This is where things get really exciting, tech-wise.
Oh, yeah. Meroë wasn't just a capital, it was a huge, thriving city, industry, trade, you name it, and they were masters of ironworking. Not just using it, but innovating, creating new techniques.
Okay, so let's break down this iron thing. How did it actually affect Kush? I mean, did it change their society, military, their economy?
Well, iron was a game changer. Think about it. Tools, weapons, it's not just for fighting.
Right.
Agriculture, they could farm more land more efficiently, boosts the economy.
And, yeah, the military edge. Did they come up with any, special weapons or tactics because of the iron?
Tough to say for sure. We know about Cambyses, the Persian king. Tried to take Meroë, failed.
That was in the video, yeah.
But how much of that's true? Who knows? Maybe those stories got exaggerated a bit.
Right.
But it shows they were strong, able to hold off a big empire like Persia. Plus, they controlled important trade routes, so they had money to spend on armies, buildings, all that.
So this iron mastery, it ties into their success in so many ways. But it makes me think about, the downsides. Like, with Egypt, maybe not everyone benefited from Kush being in charge. Was there a dark side to Meroë's iron industry too?
That's a good point, and this is where archaeology helps us see the long-term effects. It does seem like that iron industry, as amazing as it was, it had a cost. Environmentally, I mean. Think about all the wood they needed for those furnaces.
Oh yeah, to keep them burning.
Deforestation.
Exactly, that affects everything. The soil, water, the whole ecosystem. And they were super reliant on farming too.
Right, so if the land gets messed up.
Exactly. Overgrazing adds to that too. So even a powerful kingdom like Kush, they couldn't escape those problems. Sustainability, we're still dealing with that today. But the video, it said Meroë didn't fall because of the environment, right? It was the Axumites who took them down.
That's right. Around 330 AD, the Axumites, another powerful kingdom from what's now Ethiopia. They invaded, sacked Meroë, a huge blow. But even before that, Kush was probably already struggling. We see signs of decline, buildings, the economy, their art even.
So the Axumites, they were kind of the finishing touch. But Kush didn't disappear overnight, did they?
Nope. They hung on, weakened, for maybe 20 years more. Shows how tough they were. But around 350 AD, it's over. The Kingdom of Kush, after more than 1,000 years, gone.
It's crazy, from these tiny settlements to ruling Egypt, then this iron powerhouse. It's like a movie. But what about the people? The Kushites? Their culture, did that just vanish?
It's the big question, isn't it? Kingdoms come and go, but cultures, they're more fluid. They change, adapt, leave bits and pieces behind.
So the kingdom's gone, but not the people. Not entirely. They still had an impact on the region.
Absolutely. Their descendants, they carried those stories, those traditions with them. They shaped the region. And centuries of mixing with other cultures, that spreads outward. You see hints of Kush in the art, buildings, languages, all over.
Like ripples, spreading out. Hidden connections, forgotten stories. It makes you wonder what else is out there, just waiting to be found.
That's history for you. Always more to learn, more layers to uncover. In Kush, it reminds us, our view of the past, it's always changing.
So true. To everyone listening, remember Kush, their ironworking, their political smarts, how they influenced way beyond their borders. Keep digging, keep questioning. There are tons of stories out there, and you might be the one to bring them to light.